We're continuing our conversation about wisdom and discretion. We've talked about the book of Proverbs, and we are going to start to move into the book of Ecclesiastes tonight, which is closely connected, okay? So I thought that we would do a Life of Solomon trivia. Okay, Life of Solomon trivia. And we'll see who knows more about Solomon, the boys or the girls, okay? And this will kind of help us, figure out our context, what's going on in the life of Solomon, and then some things that are going on there. So, leaders can absolutely participate. So, boys might be at a disadvantage for leaders, not because of intelligence, because of numbers. Could have sounded terrible, and I didn't mean it to.
No pressure.
No questions about the intelligence level on the boys' side of the room. Okay. Let me see. Girls, are you okay if I give the first question to the boys because there are fewer of them?
Yeah.
You all right? No? I mean, ladies should always go first, right, boys?
Well, they have more.
Ladies first?
You should do rock, paper, scissors.
Rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah.
The boys always lose rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Should we give it to the girls first, boys?
No.
Everybody else said yes. So, ladies, here's your first question. You may converse amongst yourselves, okay? Now, I'll just tell you, some of these are easy, some of them are hard. Okay? Verse, chapter, verse, whatever I'm saying here. Question 1. What did Solomon suggest be cut in half to solve a dispute? Was it A, a cat, B, a cake, C, a servant, or D, a baby?
Wait, leaders can help?
Yes.
A baby.
The answer is indeed a baby. Well done, girls. 1 point for the girls. Okay. Carrying on with the girls. Question 2. What was Solomon's mother's name? What was Solomon's mother's name? Was it A, Mary? Was it B, Gertrude? Was it C, Rachel? Or was it D, Bathsheba? We have a tentative hand. D, Bathsheba? Is that your final answer? Are you sure? You are correct. The answer is Bathsheba. Question 3, ladies. Which of Solomon's sons caused a civil war in Israel? Was it A, Rehoboam, B, Hezekiah, C, David, or D, Bob? A, Rehoboam? Final answer? That is correct. Let's see if we can stump them. Here. Number 4. Ladies, how many years did Solomon spend building the temple? How many years did Solomon spend building the temple? Was it A, 7 years? Was it B, 3 years? Was it C, 10 years? Was it D, 5 years? 7, 3, 10, or 5?
Sure.
No peeking. I saw Paige turn. All right. Is that your final answer? That is correct. 7 years Solomon spent building his temple. You might not. Question 5. What was it that God gave to Solomon? Was it A, wisdom, B, riches, C, honor, or D, all of the above? Wisdom, riches, honor, or all of the above? Is D your final answer? That is correct. That is correct. All of the above. Solomon asked for wisdom, but the Lord gave him wisdom, riches, and honor. Okay. So the girls have kind of won already. You've won. Should we give the boys the last couple of questions? There we go. Question 6. Gentlemen. How many women did Solomon have as wives and concubines?
That's like the hardest.
Too many that is correct. Should we just give it to them? Was it 1? Was it 10? Was it 100? Or was it 1,000?
1,000.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
You are correct. That is 1,000. He actually had 700 wives and 300 concubines. So the answer, too many, would have been acceptable. Okay. Anything more than 1 would have been acceptable. Okay. Question 7. All right. This is probably the hardest one. Are you ready? Which nation supplied the lumber Solomon needed to build the temple? Was it A, Babylon? Was it B, Egypt? Was it C, Tyre? Or was it D, the Dominican Republic?
I know. Tired.
Is Tyre your final answer?
Yes. I read the action button.
Ryan, you're correct.
Yeah.
So are the boys. King Hiram from Tyre supplied all the cedars that he needed. All right. The last 2 questions are true or false. You up for it?
Okay, yeah.
All right. Question 8. True or false? One of the Proverbs of Solomon is, cleanliness is next to godliness. True or false?
Okay, well, Steve says false.
Steve, is that your final answer? That is correct. That is false. If I had $1 for every time someone thought that was in the Bible, I'd probably have like $6. But anyway. Question 9, final question. True or false? Boys. As of October 1st, 2020, King Solomon still holds the record for the most educational degrees ever achieved. True or false?
Did he even have an education?
True or false? As of October 1st, 2020, King Solomon still holds the record for most educational degrees ever achieved.
Where did you find that question? If you look at Tony Stark.
You look at Tony Stark. I love where this conversation's going. True or false? True or false? Solomon still holds the most educational degrees ever achieved. True or false?
Does it carry over to us to get it if they get it wrong?
Sure.
I'll guess.
Yeah, you have until now.
Is it yes or
What's
no?
your answer?
False.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
That is correct. False. So, ladies, had mercy on them, had pity on their souls, and enabled them to answer some questions. So you actually lost by 1 point.
We got the hardest question.
You did get the hardest question. Thank you. Would you guys have known it was Tyre for, yeah? Awesome. Very cool. All right. So by way of review, you guys, we had 4 wisdom principles. All right, we're going to give a 5th wisdom principle tonight. Our first wisdom principle was that true wisdom comes from, anybody remember what?
God.
It does come from God, but specifically, what does Proverbs 1:7 tell us wisdom comes from? The fear of who?
Man.
The fear of the Lord, right? The fear of the Lord. Okay, do I need the microphone? You guys hear me about the microphone? No? Okay, I'll leave it on. I feel like we're a smaller group, I shouldn't need it, but I'll leave it on. Okay, that was the first wisdom principle. True wisdom comes from the fear of the Lord. Our second wisdom principle was obey who? Obey your parents. Obey your parents, okay? Fear of the Lord would imply obeying Him. So obey the Lord, and then wisdom principle. We can't talk tonight. Wisdom principle number 2 is obey your parents. Wisdom principle number 3 was beware of false wisdom. Remember, we looked at the voice of the fool, the voice of the lazy person, of the sluggard, and the voice of the mocker. Okay, so beware of the false wisdom that's out there. Was wisdom principle number 3. Wisdom principle number 4 was be who God has made you to be. Okay, And tonight we want to talk about how wisdom principle number 5, meaning is found in my relationship with God. Okay? True meaning for my life, purpose for my life, right, is found in my relationship with God. So what I want us to see, actually, if you want to open your Bibles to the book of, not Proverbs, but the book of Ecclesiastes, we're going to start to look at Solomon's story a little more. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. What we see as we just get a really quick overview of the life of Solomon is that his story teaches us that God created me to be only satisfied with God. Okay, God created me, all human beings, right, to only be satisfied with God. All right. So Ecclesiastes chapter 1. All right. He's going to wax poetic about a lot of things that happen in a repetitive kind of fashion in the first 11 verses. And then Solomon starts to talk about his own life here in verse 12. Okay, he refers to himself as the preacher, okay, which is a unique kind of title. There's just sort of a rabbit trail, but there are people who actually argue that this is written by someone besides Solomon. It's actually sort of written as a biography, and it's somebody else speaking. But most of the earmarks of what happens here in the book fit best to Solomon, so we believe that that's who is writing here. But he refers to himself as the preacher because he has a message to share. Okay. He says, I, the preacher, have been king, this is verse 12, over Israel in Jerusalem. And I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. I said in my heart, I've acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me. And my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. And I perceive that this also is but a striving after the wind. For much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. And you guys are like, man, that's a downer. Man, what a bummer, right? He's depressed, okay? Not wrong, all right? He has come to the end of his life, all right? And he looks back and says, man, I chased so much stuff, and none of it brought me any satisfaction close to what the Lord can give me. And so what happens in the book of Ecclesiastes is actually a very dark book. You kind of go through and you're like, where's the hope? Where's the hope? And then you don't really see it until the very last chapter, chapter 12, where he starts to talk a little bit more about what his conclusions are, okay? So let me give you just a real quick summary of what he's going to go through, okay? So you get a little bit of a hint of that he sought wisdom. He actually he says, I tried out madness and folly, right? I went in the total route of foolishness to see if there was any joy and hope to be found in just having it easy and all that kind of stuff, right? And so we start saying things like, history is just constantly repeating itself. There's nothing new that happens under the sun. That when I chased after things like pleasure and wisdom and power, wealth, and when I valued my youth and my health and my family, none of those things last, right? All those things start to crumble and fade away after time. And then he gets upset because he sees, well, the people who are wicked and evil, they have good lives, right? And the people who are good and righteous and who follow after the Lord, they have terrible lives. And how is that right, you know? And so he travels through that path and is wrestling with that idea. And then he talks about how when you put yourself to a task, when you work and have a job or something like that, it's just, it's awful. I just don't want to work, right? It's wearisome. There's nothing fulfilling about it, right? So just a couple of examples from my own life, right? So history always repeating itself. When I was in, I don't know, probably 8th or 9th grade, I got into hockey, right? And Ryan's walking out right now. I'm telling this story to you, man, right? No, I'm just kidding, you guys. I loved hockey, but I was not very good at it. Okay, and I got really into hockey because at the time, my street, which actually the Bergens live on it miles and miles down the same street, where we lived used to be there were stop signs and it was not a lot of traffic coming through there, and now 538 is a highway and people are just flying through there all the time. But there used to be these neighborhood kids that would play hockey out in the street right in front of my house. So I'd watch and I'd root for one side or the other, you know. But I was too little to play with them because they were a lot older. And so as I got older, I really wanted to play hockey. So I'd start to play in the driveway. And so maybe only Ryan will find this funny. But when I was learning how to play, I had the wrong stick. All right. So I'm right-handed. So I bought a right-handed stick, but I play hockey left-handed. And I think that's because I play the guitar, which is this way. I play hockey this way. I think that's what happened there. But anyway, I had the wrong stick, so I don't have not a lot of accuracy, right, with my slap shot because the stick's curved the wrong way. And anytime I would do my backhand, it would just go like up in the air and like fly all kinds of crazy places. So I will tell you, I broke not one, not two, but 3 windows in my parents' garage, right? And progressively got more and more in trouble for breaking. But I'm like, I don't understand. Like I'm trying to play hockey and I keep missing the net, right? And then like I would break all these windows, okay? But like it was just kind of funny how in the beginning I was like, oh man, like I broke this window and I gotta go tell my dad, and then like, oh, it happened again, and now I gotta go tell my dad again, and then I gotta tell my dad again, and I broke another window, right? And my parents were super gracious because like that was like this old garage, it wasn't nice or anything, like there was no electricity or anything in it. But it was like I had to like board up the window and fix things, and it was like this is awful. But like I made the same mistake over and over and over again, and like that's the way our lives tend to be, like we make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And on a global historical kind of scale, history repeats itself over and over again. Like one generation to the next generation, it might look different, they might dress different, they might listen to different music, they might wear their hair differently. Okay, but the same issues still pervade there. They're still going through the same things over and again. So Solomon is talking about that, right? Also, he talks about again how like the wicked prosper and the righteous suffer. But that's sort of a that perspective misses some of what Romans chapter 3 is all about, where it talks about how there's actually no one righteous. There's no one righteous, no, not one. And so he wrestles with the notion of, well, good people should have good things happen to them and bad people should have bad things happen to them. But the reality, you guys, is that every single one of us doesn't deserve anything good. We don't deserve anything good because we're all sinners, right? It's only the grace of God that gives us any good day and the ability to even be here, right? And to worship together. All right, so that's something that he's working through here. And then this idea of work that's not satisfying, I'm sure we all have lots of chores that we hate to do, right? Like there's that one thing, like I don't know if it's the dishes or like how many of you have to cut the grass? That's the grass in their house, okay? Like that's like my least favorite chore. I'm not a yard work, like outdoor green thumb kind of person. So like when I have to cut the grass, it's like the longest chore ever, and I try to avoid it as much as possible. All right, and so like my neighbors complain. But like, there's that job you hate doing, and so what we're reminded is that work is often hard, like studying for our test is not always the fun thing to do. But that God in the beginning didn't actually intend it to be that way. This is sort of a broken version of what God intended us to experience when it comes to life here. So in conclusion, all he's going through, he works through all these types of things in the book of Ecclesiastes, and he comes to the conclusion that life in a sinful world is hard and it's full of meaningless pursuits. You guys follow what he's saying there, right? Life is hard and there's all kinds of things that just feel so meaningless, right? And now Solomon, or as we're going to see in just a moment, he had everything a human being could ever want. Right? He had everything a human being could ever want in an earthly kind of sense, right? He had power, okay? He had wealth, right? He had honor, he had reputation, okay? He had it all, right? He lived the life that many human beings wish they could live. And yet he says, there is nothing in this. It is all meaningless, okay? But the conclusion that he comes to is even better, okay? So keep a finger at the beginnings. We're going to come back. Turn all the way to the last chapter, all right? Chapter 12 of the book of Ecclesiastes. Chapter 12, all right? And here's what he comes to the conclusion. Yes, life is hard, right? Yes, there are all kinds of things that can distract our focus. But here's what he says in verse 13. Chapter 12, verse 13. He says, the end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. All right? Here's what he comes to the conclusion. Yes, life in a simple world is hard. Yes, it's full of meaningless pursuits, okay? Unless I worship the Lord. Then all of a sudden it's not meaningless. All of a sudden it has a whole ton of meaning. All right? Here's what he's saying, okay? It's only when I'm armed with the understanding that when I worship the Lord, when I obey him, when I fear him, all of a sudden I can truly enjoy all the things, all the blessings of this world. But when those things, those small things, right, in terms of the grand scale, become my pursuit, man, they're going to feel empty and meaningless. You understand what I'm saying there? It's like it inverts the way the whole thing is supposed to work. If I worship God above all else and obey Him, man, I'm going to be able to find all kind of enjoyment in relationships, in the things that God puts into my life, in the days that I have, in the work that I have. But if I put work and people and things as like the most important stuff, they're going to feel empty and meaningless. This is the balance that needs to be struck when we understand what the book of Ecclesiastes is about. So what I'm saying, again, our wisdom principle for tonight is that meaning is found in my relationship with God, not in these temporary things. However, God's relationship with me breaks the meaninglessness of sin and gives me eternal hope, eternal peace and purpose, and enables me to enjoy the blessings that He gives me in this life. You guys understand what I'm saying there? Right? That's this idea of the fact that meaning is found in my relationship with God. It's not that the temporary things are the things that we enjoy in this life are worthless and meaningless, but rather we need our relationship with God to give them meaning and purpose in the time that we have. So let me give you guys 3 temporary things that easily become idols. Now when I use the word idol, what do you guys understand that word to mean? What is an idol? Somebody help me out. Go ahead. Something that people worship. Good. Give me some more thoughts. Go ahead, Ryan.
Something that you look up to and value very much.
Something you look up to and value very much. Brady, what were you going to say? Something you like more than God. Okay, great. Give me some more. Any other thoughts? AJ was about to call on you. That was just a hair tuck there. Go ahead.
Something you're willing to sin to get.
Something you're willing to sin to get. Man, that's a great definition. All right. An idol, you guys, is anything that I'm going to put above God. Okay? It's anything I'm going to put above God. It's anything that I'm willing to sin to get. Right? In other words, I want to have that and I don't care what it takes to have that in my possession. All right? An idol is anything other than God that I truly can't live without. You guys with me in that? An idol is anything other than God that I would say, man, I can't live without that. Right? Because that becomes a competing thing in my heart. Therefore, idolatry, okay, that's the practice of worshiping an idol, right? It's refusing to make God the center and the circumference of my life, okay? And I say that, I stole that phrase from somewhere, I don't remember where, but people often will say, you gotta make God the center of your life. And I feel like, yes, that's true, but that's not enough, right? God is not just part of my life, He is my life, okay? Like, my relationship with Christ is everything. And so it's important that we recognize that an idol is anything that challenges the lordship of Jesus Christ in my life, that becomes any competition, right, to the fact that He is the one that I worship. And guys, we've said this before, but as human beings, we're all going to worship something. All right, maybe you're in here and you're new to Christianity, new to all this kind of stuff, right? And you're just like, I've never really been I've been a religious person, but like, I don't understand that, okay? We always are worshiping something. Whatever the most important thing is in our lives. We might not like literally bow down to it and pray to it, okay? Maybe it's video games, like I hope you don't bow down to your Xbox, that'd be kind of weird. But the reality is, maybe Xbox is the most important thing in my life because all of my time goes into that. When I'm not playing Xbox, I'm thinking about playing Xbox, right? When I'm offline, I'm just planning the next time I'm gonna get online, and what's gonna happen there, right? That becomes an idol because it consumes my thoughts, it consumes my desires. It's the only thing I'm thinking about, right? It's the most important thing in my life. Therefore, I become a worshiper of whatever is the most important thing to me. Okay? That could be people, that could be friends, that could be my popularity, that could be myself, you guys. That's a really scary thing, right? That some of us, we wrestle with pride so badly that like I actually start to worship myself, my own feelings, my own wants, okay? So an idol is anything that takes the place of God that I'm willing to sin to get, right? And that I would say, man, I can't live without that, right? Anything other than God that I would say that becomes an idol. So let me give you 3 temporary things in our world that easily kind of become idols to us, right? You guys following where I'm going? All right, 3 things that it's really easy to like maybe not literally, but metaphorically bow down to and make them the most important thing in my life. So I'm going to be real general. I'm just going to say things as number 1, okay? But let's unpack that a little bit. Things. Now, let's look at Solomon's life a little more. So we're going to go back to the end of chapter 1 into chapter 2 of Ecclesiastes. Okay, so go back to the beginning of the book. Notice in verse 18, the last verse of chapter 1, he said, "In much wisdom is much vexation, and you increases knowledge, increases sorrow." Very like, the more you know, the heavier the burden is, right? Like, and this is a man at the end of his life saying, I've done it all, I've seen it all, I've tried it all, and I'm weary, right? And I'm coming back to this reality that there is nothing that has than the Lord, okay? So now he's going to give us a little bit of this story. So chapter 2, verse 1. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this also was vanity. It was meaningless. I said of laughter, it's mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. He says, I'm gonna try partying. Let's see if that's any good, all right? And I'm going to systematically eliminate all these things and see what is going to give my life meaning. Verse 4, he says, I made great works. I built houses. I planted vineyards for myself. Anybody aspire to have a vineyard in their backyard? Probably not. Okay, my neighbor literally has a vineyard in their backyard, and it's so overgrown, and he doesn't take care of it anymore, and it like stinks like rotting grapes all the time. Okay, so if you do plant a vineyard, take care of it. Right? But Solomon had lots of vineyards. Okay, it says verse 5, I made gardens and parks. I planted them with all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. I had also great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself gold and silver and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delight of the children of man. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. And whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from their pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. Verse 11, then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity, and a striving after wind. There was nothing to be gained under the sun. Okay? Remember what I said earlier? He had everything. And I know that when we think about like all that landscaping he's talking about, trees and ponds and things like that, we're like, big deal. Like, this is a guy who had the power and the authority to command the earth to be reshaped to whatever he wanted it to be. Okay? Richest, most powerful king that Israel ever had. Okay? And he comes to the end and he says, without God, this was all meaningless. This meant nothing to me. And so we see that in all the things that he had, right? He thought that they might give him joy, but they didn't. Give me something, all right, that doesn't last as long as it should. Give me something that doesn't last as long as it should. Good.
Walmart batteries.
Walmart batteries, yeah. Those knockoff brands, man. I feel like if you're not buying Duracell, you're making a bad choice. Energizer's okay. I feel like Duracell, like, it lasts, man. If you get like that Brayovox stuff, it's like, no, that's not lasting. Batteries, I love it. Okay, give me more. Christmas does not last as long as you need. All that anticipation, right? And then it's here and gone. Go ahead. Your Halloween candy. Is that because other people help you eat it? No, it just doesn't last very long. I still have Easter candy in my house. I don't know what that says. Okay. Oh, that's actually pretty good. A week. Not really. Okay, go ahead, Paige.
What? Oh, summer.
Summer. Any, okay, all the takers there. Everybody say amen. Summer doesn't last long enough. Okay, great. Good. You don't like summer?
School week doesn't last.
The school week, but you're ready for that to get done, right? You don't care? I was gonna say the weekend. Like, I feel like the weekend is like, man, it's just gone, and it's ready to start over again. Any other things that don't last as long as they should? Your patience. At least you're honest. At least you're honest, right? That's good. Patience should last longer. Danny?
Ice cream.
Ice cream, yeah, right? And just, you get to the bottom of that cone and you're just like, man, I really wish there was some more there. Jack?
Your birthday.
Your birthday, yeah, right? All those days that you look forward to. So my favorite holiday is Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving, and I feel like it's just here and gone. And it's like, you get those awesome turkey leftovers for a few days, but they don't last as long as they should either. All right. Anything else that doesn't last as long as it should? Okay. Does that also run by Walmart batteries? Oh, okay. So it's not as good as like the real thing. It doesn't run well. Okay, Ryan.
Were we on earth or grass did not?
The grass did not last long. Okay.
It's like a waste.
Yeah. I wish that the grass would like take its good old time to grow, so I wouldn't have to cut it as much. But how about like so I'll give you if there's ever a trivia about my life, I'll give you two little trivia things, okay? There are two foods that I crave. Two foods that I crave. Not necessarily always at the same time, but two foods that I periodically will crave. One of them is mangoes. I love mangoes. Are you going to give me an amen back there? Okay. I love mangoes, like so very much. And my wife went to, her family has a farm market, so they're like at the end of their season for everything, they had a bunch of mangoes there. So she brought a bunch home just like in the off chance that they were good. They were amazing. They were amazing. For 3 days I had mango. It was so good. Okay. Love mangoes. The other thing is sushi. I love sushi.
Yes.
Love sushi. Those are two things, you guys, that when I've got mango and sushi sometimes together, okay, like that does not last as long as it should. Does not last as long as it should. I'm sure you guys have some foods besides ice cream and candy too. Do you have one?
I have another thing.
Go ahead.
The amount of time that I pay attention.
Your attention span is, yeah, okay. Have I lost you already? Is this like a confession? All right, steak I heard over there, something that doesn't last as long as it should, yeah. The summer, how about like if you guys play for a team or like you have like a great moment where like everybody recognizes you did a good job, like that moment of the win, right? It's like that exciting, oh man, everybody's saying, oh, good job, and we won the game. It's like that, but that doesn't last as long as it should, right? It kind of goes away, and then you have to chase it again. Go ahead, Leo. Go ahead. Sleep. Oh man, amen, right? Sleep does not last as long as it should. Or like that drive when you're on the way to the dentist and you like want the drive to take longer, right? Like it's over. You know what I'm talking about? Recess, all right? Recess does not last as long as it should. Let me get one more. Go ahead, Kevin. Fridays. Oh man, Fridays do not last as long as they should. Okay, guys. Here's the thing. All right, we just mentioned a bunch of like small, like. Yes, they're fun. Yes, we love them, but small things on the scale of what does and doesn't last, okay? Those things all go by very quickly. Here's some other things that don't last either, all right? Friendships don't last, all right? Our looks don't last. Our appearances don't last, okay? Our health does not last. I think COVID-19 taught us a lot about health, okay? Our health doesn't last. All of our possessions, right? The things that we own, whether or not they're authentic or knockoff, right? They eventually wear down. They break. They don't stay. Our reputations, right? How many of you, I mean, I'm not ask for a show of hands in this, right? But how many of you at one point made some kind of mistake, right? And like instantly, all the cred that you built up, right? It's gone, right? And all of a sudden, you have to like rebuild trust with people. Maybe your parents, maybe a friend, okay? Here's the thing, you guys. We all like stuff, okay? We all like having new things. We all like enjoying what God has blessed us with, okay? But none of the things that are in our life can really bring us peace. Okay? They cannot bring us contentment. Okay? As a matter of fact, this phone, all right, this is an iPhone 6S, so it's really old, okay? It's still chugging. It lives on low power, low battery mode all the time so it can get through the day, okay? When I got this phone, it was like, man, this is a great phone. It's so fast. It's got all these new features, right? And now it can't even update to the newest OS, right? And within like 2 years or however long I've had this, okay? Like, you always want the newest iPhone, and it's great because it can do all the new things that it can do. Or you want the newest Android, right? That's where you're shaking out over there. Okay? Like you want the newest phone so that it can like live up to all these expectations, and yet within a year you're gonna need another one. You're gonna need a new one. Okay? I'm a collector. How many of you guys are collectors? You like to like collect certain things. What do you like to collect, Amanda? What is it?
Art supplies.
Art supplies. Okay, awesome. Anybody else like to collect things, Andrew? Legos. Oh man, I'm so with you. Go ahead. Rubber ducks. Oh, like all different ones, like different faces and hats and costumes. Oh, okay, cool. Hopefully they're a play to win. Maybe not. Yeah, okay. Yeah, some of them are scams. You're totally right. Like close this before it gets down all the way. Yeah, okay, I'm totally with you. Okay. Any other collections? So I collect, I'm an old person apparently because I collect records. I love records. I've got a huge record collection and I'm always buying records, okay? And like there's like something, I also collect books, I'm an old person. Started things for me is to like go to a record shop and just like start digging, right? Like just go through all those, I love it so much, okay? But like, I'll find like I'll get a pile, like, oh man, these are some old-fashioned things I really like to listen to. I'll bring them home, listen through the stack, listen to it, and it's like, I want to go back and get some more, right? I want to go back and I'm going to do some more crate digging, all right? And I got some sad news yesterday that my record store is actually closing. Going over here. Going over by Hollywood Niner is closing. I'm really upset about that. I'm sure you guys are too. But anyway, here's the thing. All this to say that the stuff that we chase after, right, it does not last. Right? It does not last. You know? And again, the point of this conversation tonight is not to say that we shouldn't want things, not that we shouldn't enjoy things, but rather, when we allow our relationship with Jesus to give our lives meaning, all of a sudden we can take great joy in the things that He blesses us with, right? And the time that we have, the things that He's given us to enjoy, you know? But what we have to be careful of, you guys, is that we can't be so easily distracted with lesser things, right? That are inevitably going to leave us empty, right? We can't just chase after those things because God is the one who's promised to never leave us nor forsake us, right? He says that repeatedly in the Bible. I will never leave you nor forsake you, okay? Friends will, sadly enough, okay? Stuff will. It's going to break. It's going to go. It can't bring us peace and contentment, right? So 3 temporary things that usually become idols. Number 1, things. Number 2, let's talk more about relationships. Number 2, relationships. Things cannot bring us total contentment. They usually become idols. And relationships can't bring us total contentment because they also easily become idols, okay? Basically, what I want us to think about tonight is that the reality is that friends are great, right? Friends are great. We love having friends. But friends are only great until they aren't. Okay? Like, simple as that, okay? But friends are really great, and it's actually really important that we have a friend group, a friend base, okay? I was reading an article today, a scientific study, research study that's been done like in the last 2 years. There's an article posted in January. This is his name is, not that you will know, Lawrence Steinberg. You guys know who that is, right? No. Okay. He works for Temple University. But he was doing a study on teenagers, adolescents, and their relationships with their peers, okay? And he said this. He said, there's something about the brain during adolescence in mammals. They also did this study on mice, which is, I feel like mice, human teenagers, there's a big gap there. But anyway, that's hardwired to be especially sensitive to peer influence and to be more reward-seeking in the presence of peers. In other words, and this is by the way, the study goes on to say that this is something that can extend into adulthood, because as adults, we still have this peer influence, and I think we're social creatures, right? Where when our peers are present with us, okay, there's decisions that we might make a little different. He says, instead of calling this phenomenon peer pressure, we started calling it peer presence. Right? You guys heard of peer pressure before, right? It's like the sort of do it, kind of mentality that is there. They actually started calling this peer presence instead, because what they discovered is that who you're with, right, is what's important, not necessarily what they're telling you to do or not to do. All right? He says when teenagers are with each other, everything that feels good feels even better, Steinberg says. If what feels good is something that also carries some danger to it, then kids get in trouble because they are ignorant of the danger or choose to ignore it just because you're with the other people, right? But Steinberg and his colleagues have also shown that teenagers learn faster when they're with their peers than they do by themselves, which is why we need to get you all back in school, right? Just saying, okay? And they engage in more exploratory behavior when they're with their peers. Who the peers are becomes very important. Parents should worry, he says, about peer pressure or peer influence. Steinberg said they should worry about who the peers are their kids are hanging around with, right? It's who they're hanging out with, who you guys are hanging out with. When kids hang around with students who've got better grades, their own grades go up over time. Teenagers can also pressure one another not to use drugs. Of course, the reverse is true as well. But virtually all kids, because of the nature of adolescence, are going to be susceptible to peer influence and peer pressure, Steinberg said. The question really is, whom are they influenced by, and what is it that they are being pressured to do? Okay? The simple point is this, right? We need friends. Okay? We need relationships. We need to be connected, okay? But the question is, who are the people that we're pursuing as our friends? And so I want to take a quick detour because I don't know if you guys are actually following along with our reading since we just got the journals tonight. But if you turn back just like 3 pages to the book of Proverbs, Proverbs 27, we actually read this 2 days ago in our reading schedule. Proverbs 27 gives us a great series of verses about what a good friend should be. Okay, so this is just a real quick tangent because friends are important. We need to have good friends. And here's what a good friend looks like. Okay, Proverbs 27. It's going to read verses 5 to 10 here, and then verse 17. 27, verse 5. in describing relationships here, Solomon says, better is open rebuke than hidden love. Okay? Let's pause. What does that mean? What does it mean when he says, better is open rebuke than hidden love? Somebody help me out with how you would understand that. What's a rebuke? It's like a really harsh word, isn't it? What does that mean? Yeah, Andrew?
Correct someone?
To correct someone, yeah, absolutely. It's like, hey, you're wrong. All right. But it's done, it says, in an open way, okay? But in contrast with a love that is a secret love, right? Or a love that is not willing to say what needs to be said, okay? In other words, it's better to have a relationship with someone who's going to tell you when you're doing something wrong than it is to be with someone who's not going to tell you what's wrong because they're more interested in making you happy, more interested in keeping the friendship, okay? He says, better is open rebuke than hidden love. And he says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy, right? This is not like making out kisses. This is like in a society where you would kiss someone as a sign of greeting, right? As a sign of friendship or companionship, okay? And so he's saying that a friend who is willing to hurt me by telling me the truth, what I need to hear, right? That's better than someone who's just going through the motions of friendship, right? Someone who's just doing everything to make me feel good about myself, right? So a friend who's going to be honest, a friend who might even be willing to hurt me by sharing the truth that I need to hear, is someone who's going to be a good friend, okay? And then go down to verse, let's see, verse 9. He says, oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. So we've got a comparison here, right? That when the good kind of smells that you like from, like, your I don't know, your shower gel, your perfume, your deodorant or something like that, good refreshing kind of smell, right? So they would anoint their bodies with oil and perfume to smell good, that kind of thing, right? It makes you feel good, it makes you, opens the senses, that kind of deal, right? A friend who gives you good counsel, good advice, who listens to you and tells you what you need to hear, right? Again, that's someone who brings refreshment to you, and someone who helps you understand the way you should go, okay? And then he actually says, don't forsake your friend and your father's friend. Do not go to your brother's house in the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor who's near than a brother who's far away. This is one of those Proverbs where there's a lot of different ways to interpret this. What I think he's saying there is you need to make sure that you are building relationships with people before the crisis comes. In other words, it's one thing for you to be like, oh yeah, I'll catch you guys later. And then, like, when your life is falling apart, you're like, I need you guys, right? But you've never, like, invested, you've never been with them when they needed you. You've never, just built a relationship with them, but now that you need something, you're calling on them for help, right? So you need a friend who's going to be invested in you. And then the last verse I want you to look at is verse 17. So this, for me, is down the bottom of the page, verse 17. It says, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. There's actually sort of the imagery is there of like sort of two knives, two blades being sharpened by rubbing them against each other, right? Here's the point, all right? Guys, we want to have good friends. We need friends, but we want to have good friends who are actually going to be honest, direct, who are going to be people who stick with us through our hardships, right? But people who aren't just going to tell us what we want to hear so we feel good about ourselves. Okay? A real friend is someone who's going to be honest with you and be faithful to you in that process, right? But here's the point. So coming back to our conversation here, friends are something that we want to have good friends. We want to invest in them, but we have to do that with the knowledge that not all of our friends are always going to be our friends. Okay? Not all of our friends are going to be our friends always. As a matter of fact, friends come and go. Okay? But someone who's a good friend is going to propel us toward godliness in the time that we're close with them. Okay? Here's the reality, and I don't want to upset anybody tonight, but I'm friends with maybe 2 of my high school friends still. Right? Maybe 2. Right? And that's I'm friends with one that I'm still pretty close with. We get together pretty regularly. We talk pretty regularly. And the other guy I'm including as someone I still connect with like maybe once a year. All right? That's not like necessarily a bad thing, but like as life has taken us different ways, as we've grown, all right, as we've made more friendships, as we've pursued different things, right, like our relationships, the nature of our relationship has changed. So here's the point I simply want to make to you guys tonight, all right? We can be so consumed with our friend relationships now. First of all, maybe with friends that are not encouraging us to live the way that we should, right? Friends that are not actually encouraging us on the path of godliness, okay? Which is a problem, right? Or maybe we're just making our friend relationships so important, right? That it's becoming that kind of idol, that it is keeping me away from actually worshiping God the way I should, because I'm finding my identity, I'm finding my purpose, I'm finding everything in my relationship with my friends, right? There has to be a balance there. I have to be able to enjoy those relationships, but I have to do that through understanding that God is the one who is my all in all. He's the one who satisfies me. He's the one who deserves my full worship, my full attention, okay? When it comes to relationships, and we'll have one more thought, we'll conclude here, okay? Our family, right? Sometimes family is something that we can really put in a position that it should not be, simply because we have to recognize that family is not perfect either, right? Like friends, family is not perfect, all right? While we want to be able to trust that our families are always going to be there for us, right? That we're going to grow in our relationship with our families, that we'll always be connected to our families, right? Jesus actually tells us that we have to be willing, for the sake of the gospel, to allow there to be brokenness in those relationships where there's a difference of belief, all right? And we have to just understand that, while family can be a safe place, right? It is not the only place that let me say it this way, that's not where my foundation is, okay? As a Christian, all right, my foundation is my Savior. My foundation is the one who gave his life for me, okay? I want to love my family, certainly I want to be committed to my family, but I just have to recognize that that's not the thing that is perfect in my life. You guys understand what I'm saying there, right? I want to love my family, I want to be connected, I'm not saying anything bad about family, just that family is not the only meaning of my life. Okay? It's not the only meaning of my life, right? Status before others doesn't bring happiness either. Remember, Solomon was the most powerful guy in the world. He could do anything that he wanted, and yet he says, even though I was the king, even though I had wealth, even though I had prestige, right? It all was meaningless, okay? We get really attached to whether we are loved, whether we feel loved, whether we're appreciated, whether we're liked, whether we're known, whether we're accepted, whether people see us, right? These are things that we are driven by as human beings, not just as teenagers. As human beings, we're driven by this stuff, right? But again, the reality is that I'm not living for the affirmation of other people, okay? I'm living for Jesus, right? I'm living for his approval, not just the people that are around me, okay? Let's move on to our last one, because we're running out of time here. So our first one was things, right? Things become, it's a temporary thing that can easily become an idol. Relationships are a temporary thing that can easily become an idol, all right? And lastly, I want to step on everybody's American toes. I'm sorry, I'm going to step on all your American toes, all right? Independence. Independence is something that is easily an idol for us, especially as Americans, right? Because we live in the land of the free, the home of the brave, right? We do what we want, right? We can do what we want. It's better to ask for forgiveness and permission, right? That's kind of the way we live, all right? As Americans, we want to create ourselves, okay? We want to live how we want. We want to chase the things that we want. We want to make our lives about us, okay? And guys, I just got to tell you, all right, that that kind of ideology, that kind of thinking is very contrary to what the Bible would teach us about our dependence upon Christ and our dependence upon our servant attitudes towards one another. Okay, totally contrary when it comes to that. All right. So here's the thing. I want to give you a quick story here, and then we'll be done. All right. Doing whatever I want, whenever I want. Okay. Total autonomy, living however I want, independence. Right. That's only going to lead me to all kinds of mistakes and regrets in the long run. Right. Because I'm just doing what I feel at the moment. I'm just doing whatever my impulse tells me to do. Okay. So let me give you this quick idea. Okay. Think about it this way. Anybody have an aquarium at home? Like fish? No fish there? Okay, you guys have they have like a big tank, like a little one. Just one fish. Okay. So, what's his name? Her name? What is Ziggy? Okay. So Ziggy, let's say that Ziggy one day tapped his little fin on the glass. All right. And this is a talking fish. Okay. And he said, "I would like to come out where you are." Okay. What would be some of the obstacles that would keep him from coming out where you are? He has to have water. Okay, so he would have to leave the boundary of his tank, right? The safety of his tank, the place where he gets oxygen, right? And kind of come out where you are, and that would mean what for him? He would die, Okay, he would die. Okay, which, by the way, so Zeke, my son, loves the Finding Nemo movies. Right? They spend an abnormal amount of time out of the water, don't they? Like flopping around through like the aquarium exhibits and stuff, and you're just like, how are these things still alive, right? I mean, obviously it's a kids movie, but you know, like there's a reason why they have to be in the water, because that's where oxygen is, right? Here's what I want you guys to just think about tonight, okay? We love the ability to think there's no boundaries, there's no restrictions on me, I can live however I want, okay? But can I just tell you that God designed us with certain parameters in our lives. He wants us to be and do certain things, not because he wants to restrict our freedom, okay? But because in those boundaries, that's where we're safe, right? That's where we can actually flourish. In the same way that a fish out of water is going to be in a bad way, okay? When we leave the parameters that God, the rules and the guidances that God has for us, we're not actually pursuing freedom, we're pursuing our own death, pursuing our own detriment, right? And so I'm actually only free when I'm within what God has designed for me. I'm only free and flourishing, happy and alive when I'm within the parameters that God has given me. Okay? I'm actually dependent upon God for life, for breath, and for life. Okay? And I have to recognize that Christ is my gracious Lord. He's my Savior. He's my Master. Right? Belonging to Him is far better than being orphaned and alone. Right? Far better than being orphaned and alone, because He is gracious to me. He loves me. I find my freedom in my dependence upon Him. You guys understand what I'm saying there? Right? It's actually to my detriment to go chasing after whatever I want versus doing what I know that God will call me to do. So here's my last thought. We'll break up. When I understand my purpose, okay? When I understand that I am called to be a person who worships the Lord, right? Who keeps the commandments of the Lord, I can then properly appreciate the many blessings that the Lord has given to me, okay? Family, friends, things, and the present all have great meaning and value, okay? But not independent of the Lord. All right? Not independent of the Lord.